Have you ever wondered when our ancestors first decided to cover their bodies with clothing? Let's journey back in time over 100,000 years ago to the stark and frigid era of the Ice Age. Picture our early human ancestors battling the harsh elements of a world blanketed in ice. It was a time when survival was the name of the game, and the stakes were incredibly high. As the climate grew colder, our ancestors had to adapt to survive. Their bodies alone couldn't withstand the unforgiving chill, and so the concept of clothing was born. In this era, clothing wasn't about aesthetics, status, or personal expression. It was a necessity, a tool for survival, a shield against the relentless cold. The earliest evidence of clothing, fascinatingly enough, isn't a garment we can hold in our hands. It's the humble body louse. You see, body lice are different from head lice, in that they live in clothing rather than in hair. The presence of these tiny creatures in our ancestral timeline provides indirect evidence that our forebears started wearing clothes around this time. The first forms of clothing weren't the fabric-based garments we're familiar with today. Instead, our ancestors turned to what was readily available in their environment: animal skins and furs. They learned to deftly skin their prey, preserving the hides to create rudimentary clothing. These early garments were crude by today's standards, but they served their purpose well, providing much-needed warmth and protection. These early humans didn't just stop at survival, though. Over time, they started using bone needles to stitch together hides, showing an early understanding of fit and comfort. They also began to adorn their clothing with beads and shells, hinting at the origins of fashion and personal adornment. So, while we may think of clothing as a way to express ourselves or follow the latest trends, it's essential to remember its humble beginnings. In the face of a harsh and icy world, our ancestors turned to the skins of their prey, creating the very first clothes. So our ancestors started wearing clothes as a matter of survival, not fashion. Fascinating, isn't it? From survival to symbolism, let's move forward to the clothing of ancient civilizations. The ancient Egyptians, known for their elaborate hieroglyphs and monumental pyramids, were also pioneers in clothing. They primarily used linen, a fabric made from the flax plant due to Egypt's hot and dry climate. The clothing was simple, often white, and for both genders it mostly consisted of a wraparound skirt known as a shendit. However, the quality and detailing of the linen signified one's social status. The finer the linen, the higher the status. Moving on to ancient Greece. Here, clothing was more than just covering the body, it was a form of artistic expression. The staple garment was the chiton, a type of tunic made from a single piece of wool or linen, fastened with pins at the shoulders. The Greeks loved color and often dyed their clothes with natural pigments. The length and decoration of the chiton again indicated a person's social standing. Next, let's travel to ancient Rome. Romans were influenced by the Greeks but added their own flair. The toga, a large woolen cloth draped over the body, became a symbol of Roman citizenship. For Romans, clothing was a clear indicator of one's social rank and occupation. Senators wore togas with a purple stripe, while emperors wore entirely purple togas, a color that was extremely expensive to produce. In these civilizations, silk was a luxury, often reserved for the elite. It was imported from China, making it a rare and precious commodity. So, you see, in these ancient civilizations, clothing began to take on a new role. It was no longer just about protection from the elements. It was also about expressing individuality, status, and occupation. The materials used, the quality of the fabric, the colors, and the design, all played a part in this silent communication. Clothing had become more than just a necessity, it was a statement about who you were in society. As we move into the Middle Ages and Renaissance, clothing becomes even more intricate and indicative of status. In the Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 15th centuries, clothing was a clear sign of one's social standing. The wealthy flaunted their prosperity through their attire, donning garments made from luxurious materials such as silk, velvet, and fur. These materials were often dyed in rich, vibrant colors, which were costly to produce and therefore a symbol of wealth. The designs of the garments were equally elaborate. Intricate patterns and embroidery were prominent features, showcasing not just the wearer's wealth, but also the skill of the craftsmen and women who created them. The more complex and detailed the design, the higher the status of the wearer. During this period, laws known as sumptuary laws were even enacted to regulate what each social class could wear. These laws were implemented to maintain the clear distinction between the classes and prevent any blurring of the social hierarchy. As we transition into the Renaissance from the 14th to the 17th centuries, clothing continues to evolve and becomes even more sophisticated. The Renaissance period was a time of rebirth and renewed interest in the classical knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome. This cultural revival influenced fashion, resulting in more form-fitting clothes and the introduction of tailoring. The elite continued to wear luxurious fabrics, but the styles became more refined and less bulky. Men's clothing was often decorated with slashes or puffs showing off the rich fabrics underneath. Women's dresses were designed to accentuate the waist, with full skirts and wide necklines. Clothing during these periods was not just about covering the body, it was a form of self-expression and a reflection of one's social status. The wealthy used their attire to display their wealth and power, while the less fortunate wore simpler clothes made from cheaper materials. Clothing had truly become a form of art during these periods, a visual representation of wealth and status. The Industrial Revolution brought significant changes to the world of clothing. This era, spanning the late 18th to early 19th centuries, was a time of tremendous innovation and progress, and its impact on the clothing industry was no exception. Imagine a world where every garment was painstakingly hand-sewn, where even the simplest shirt could take days to complete. This was the reality before the Industrial Revolution, but as steam power and mechanization took hold, the production of clothing underwent a radical transformation. The first significant change was the mass production of clothing. The invention of the sewing machine, for instance, revolutionized the industry. Clothes once meticulously stitched by hand could now be produced at an astonishing pace. This technological leap made clothing more affordable and accessible, breaking down barriers of class and wealth. The Industrial Revolution also ushered in new materials. Cotton became the fabric of the masses thanks to inventions like the cotton gin, which made it easier to separate the cotton fibers from their seeds. But the innovation didn't stop there. The era also saw the birth of synthetic fibers, a testament to the period's spirit of invention. These synthetics offered new possibilities in clothing, from increased durability to novel textures. With clothing now more affordable and varied, fashion trends began to change at a faster pace. No longer were styles stagnant for decades. The Industrial Revolution birthed the concept of fashion seasons, a cycle of sartorial change that still influences our wardrobes today. The impact of these changes cannot be overstated. The democratization of fashion, the introduction of new materials, the acceleration of trends, all these were products of the Industrial Revolution. It was a time of tremendous change, a time that reshaped not just the clothing industry, but society as a whole. In essence, the Industrial Revolution democratized fashion, making it accessible to all. The wealth of choice we enjoy today, the ever-changing trends we follow, our very relationship with clothing, all these owe a great deal to this transformative period in history. In the modern era, clothing has become an integral part of our identity and culture. The variety of styles available today is staggering, reflecting the diverse cultures and individual tastes of people around the world. From casual wear to haute couture, every piece of clothing tells a story, a narrative of personal style, beliefs, and values. Casual wear, for instance, is all about comfort and personal expression. It's the jeans and t-shirts, the sweaters and khakis, the clothes we wear in our everyday lives. These are the pieces that make us feel like ourselves, allowing us to express our individuality and personal style. On the other hand, haute couture is the height of fashion, where artistry and craftsmanship meet in a spectacular display of creativity. These are the pieces that grace the runways of Paris and Milan, works of wearable art that push the boundaries of what clothing can be. But clothing isn't just about looking good, it's also about feeling good, and that's where technological advancements come into play. Today, we have smart clothing, garments that can monitor our health, control our devices, and even charge our phones. They're not just clothes, they're wearable technology. And let's not forget about sustainable fashion. As we become more aware of the impact our choices have on the environment, many of us are seeking out clothing that's not just stylish, but also kind to the planet. This has led to the rise of ethical brands that prioritize sustainable materials and fair labor practices, offering us the chance to look good and do good at the same time. From survival to self-expression, the evolution of clothing has been a fascinating journey. As we continue to innovate and experiment with new materials, technologies, and designs, one thing remains clear. Clothing is more than just fabric we put on our bodies. It's a powerful form of self-expression, a reflection of our values, and a testament to our creativity and ingenuity. It's a way for us to tell the world who we are and what we stand for. So, let's keep exploring, keep expressing, and keep pushing the boundaries of what clothing can be. From survival to self-expression, the evolution of clothing has been a fascinating journey.